Welcome back to this second part interview with Seeker of Truth. If you haven't got a chance to see part one yet, it's in the description below. All links for anything that we discussed today are in the description below. I want to say that we're just going to spend 16 minutes on Charlie Ward's son and just discuss some of M's interviews that he's done with Charlie Ward's son, Glenn. And then we're going to go straight in to Simon Says. So, let's just move this forward before we start our conversation on Simon. I'm not too sure when it comes to Charlie's son, Glenn, who contacted who. Did Darren initially contact Glenn, or did Glenn sort of seek you out?
I think Glenn might have contacted Darren. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it might have been that way around. But Glenn contacted me and said, I'm talking to Charlie Ward's son. Do you want to have this interview? And I said, no. I said that they're telling me that I'm trying to hunt down Charlie Ward's family and go for all these
You said Glenn, that you mean
tactics.
Darren contacted you?
Darren contacted me and said, look, I'm talking to Charlie Ward's son. Do you want to have this interview? And I said, no. I said, no, you can talk to him. Tell me if he says anything interesting. But I am not going to be involved with, I'm not going to be, I made the 30 Reasons video. You know, all eyes are on me for being someone that's trying to, or looking at, you know, wasn't trying to discredit Charlie. 30 Reasons did not come from me looking for 30 reasons. 30 Reasons came from people sending me in and me finding my own reasons to not trust him, right? So people were thinking that I was going out of my way to discredit this man. No, I just had 60 odd reasons, 30 that I could report on, and thought, why not make a video about it? Because this man is taking advantage of a lot of people. It was that easy. And people are saying, why don't you make a 30 Reasons about Simon, all these other people? We'd love to see that. Because it's not, I could make one about Simon, don't get me wrong. It was all on a plate with Charlie Ward. It was all on a plate. And all I had to do was spend 2 weeks, which I did, putting this together. And it took a lot of work, don't get me wrong. It wasn't one of my usual videos. It took a lot of editing, it took a lot of work. And I'm glad people appreciated the work that I put into it. And, you know, but it wasn't just me. It was people going, you know, my friend has, this is a real story. My friend has, basically fell out of her husband. She spent all of her money. She spent it all on foreign exchange, saying she's going to be rich. She's stopped paying her mortgage. She stopped paying her credit card bills. She's in a bad financial state. I've been telling her for ages, please make a video on Charlie. And she kept sending me these links. This was a lady, and I'm sure she'll appreciate the mention. She told me not to mention the name. That's what got me started. I was like, okay, well, let's make a 10 reasons we don't trust Charlie Ward. You've got like 4 there. Here's another 4 that I've got. Let's go and hump a couple more, make 10 reasons. And it went on to 30 reasons. And even after 30 reasons, they were still being sent in to me. But it took 2 weeks of solid work, editing. It took a lot of work to make that video. And she was still, he's 31, he's 32, he's 33. I was like, I'm already finishing this video. It's going to take me another day to finish it. I'll put it out. I was like, I'll report on the rest of them. There's probably 100 reasons. But the 30 reasons were enough for me. And so the point here was to help this woman.
You've done the 30 reasons, but how did you get connected to Charlie Ward's son, Glenn, as you were accused of going after Charlie's family by someone?
I've done all this, and that's where that came from. And then people were saying, after the day video on Claire Hocking Oakle, she had accused me of going after his family, and I'd never gone after his family. I had mentioned his son in one of the reasons, and that was because Charlie was advertising his TikTok, and knowing what TikTok is, and know, you know, everyone with any half a brain was like, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. It's weird. It's wrong. So it was obviously a reason. I didn't mean I was going after his family. I didn't say anything horrible about Justin. I didn't say anything horrible about anything. I just said Charlie putting TikTok videos out about his son, writing that is wrong. That's it. People said I was going after his family, and at that point, I did a video on Claire Hocking Oakle said that, and I was like, I've not done that. I've not gone after his family. And then I had someone go, "Do you want to talk to his stepson?" So I said no. And you know what? I don't want anything to do with talking to his family. But then Glenn, he did a video with Glenn, which I uploaded on my channel because why not? And then afterwards, Glenn wanted to talk to me. I'm not going after his family. His family are seeking out me. So I'm like, all right, okay. So then I did the first interview with him. The second interview, hopefully, will be done in a week. Or this week, in fact, hopefully. It all depends on his availability. At the end of the day, he doesn't really need to or want to. He wants to put out these videos. He wants to talk to me, which is great. You know, I feel honoured. But it will be great, and it is coming soon, and he still wants to talk to me. So it's all good.
Well, by the time that this video goes out, the part 2 interview would have already been released, and all the links are in the description for that below. So, in regards to Glenn's story, there was a gang that was after Glenn due to money owed by Charlie, and this gang ended up sending pictures of Glenn's children and his wife to Glenn, and this is just the tip of the iceberg as to why Glenn has had enough of Charlie's dad. Now, people in the comments section from part 1 and this video as well who think Charlie is being genuine, then just go watch M's and Darren's interview with Glenn. And then if you think that Glenn's lying about his father Charlie, then you really need to think about, am I being discerning here? Am I being misled? Because I don't know why people think you're trying to mislead them when you're absolutely not. And to me, Glenn is completely credible with the way that, this whole thing's come together. So I think a lot of times we all need a discernment check-in, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's clear to see the contempt that Glenn has for his father. A lot of people could criticise the interview on that very fact. It's clear that he has a vendetta against his father. The thing is, when you listen without blinkers on, when you listen without being biased to Charlie in the first place, you will see a son that's been neglected, hurt. Not only that, been put into situations which endangered his life and that of his family, all through being the son of Charlie Ward. I can totally understand Glenn feeling hatred. I can also understand Glenn coming forward to talk about it. If it was a normal situation and Charlie wasn't who he was and wasn't affecting many people, then maybe it would be inappropriate. But it is absolutely appropriate, in my opinion, for him to come forward and talk about his story and about who his father really is, when his father is affecting so many people's lives.
Every point, I mean, you only had so much time with him, and every point that you brought up, you were bringing up some of the 30 points up. I think you only managed to bring like 11 up or whatever, something around there. And, every point was, no, that's not true. And he would give a reason why it wasn't true. What that's bullshit, that never happened. It was really surreal to watch it.
I'm thankful you said that. They did, Darren and Glenn did an interview. And it was a great interview, and I'm so thankful for the both of them doing it. And I'm so thankful that they let me put it on my channel as an exclusive. It was absolutely great. And then I was so thankful that Glenn wanted to talk to me. I mean, I was, really glad. The thing is what some viewers didn't see or didn't know is that Glenn can't bring himself to watch his dad. And he also couldn't bring himself to watch my 30 Reasons. He watched some of it. So what you were seeing in real time in that interview was me showing things, confronting Glenn. And it's a horrible word to say, and I'm sorry, Glenn. I don't mean to be like that, but it was like literally he's giving someone time to talk to him about his dad, and giving them the opportunity to throw stuff at them that is awkward. I know that Glenn found the interview very awkward. People have said to me, some people have said to me, all you're doing is reliving 30 Reasons and promoting that and not doing anything. For me, what it was the first interview with Glenn was a bit unstructured. It was great. It was natural. I put Glenn in some uncomfortable situations. I structured it using the 30 Reasons, which thankfully a lot of people, as well, including yourself, thank you, had said was a great way to do that. Because you could see through the interview that I did with him that he didn't know about a lot of these things. And you could see he was uncomfortable, but you could also see that he gave honest answers about it. And I think that's what we needed. But not only that, from the first interview, I took stuff that wasn't completely explored and I brought it back and we explored it. Now, the interview was meant to be one interview. And halfway through, he said he has to go. So I only spent the first half of the interview reviewing stuff that had already been said. So I had a few criticisms that the interview was a repeat. It was a promotion of yourself. It wasn't that. It was me going over old ground to set up the story for the second half. And the second half is coming very soon.
And confirming the facts that you'd already put out there as well, and from the horse's mouth, I mean, who would not know better than his son? There were points that came out there that Charlie's been in prison twice, and we can't take that against anyone, but it was for, I think one was for non-payment of maintenance for his children, another was for counterfeiting money and credit card fraud. I will use the word alleged because obviously I ain't got court documents in front of me to prove that, right? But this is coming from his son who said this, and there's just so many things.
I think some of those facts are confirmed by his own word in his own book. So you're safe to say that. I think the non-payment of child maintenance is only coming from his own son, so that you can't confirm. But I think Charlie had said that I think he said in his book he was in jail twice. He at least admitted to once, and he had said that the counterfeiting of money in his book. So he admitted that in his own words.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and obviously, that Glenn lost his brother as well, which was, a difficult subject still, and his dad went to the newspapers to, well, somehow this story got leaked to the newspapers that, Charlie was an oil tycoon and he'd lost his son in a tragic accident. But like Glenn said, there's one, he was never an oil tycoon, and two, he actually sold the story to sell himself, not really about his son's death. I mean, it's just so narcissistic and terrible.
Something we can't prove, something Glenn can't prove, but something that absolutely made sense to me, and I think is highly probable, especially with the way that he disputed that interview when I questioned it in my interview with Charlie. It just makes absolute sense to me. I mean, Glenn said it, that's his suspicion. For me to later learn that, I was like, well, okay, yeah, it all adds up now. Because I thought that was a flex from Charlie. That was selling that story, as grim as it is from, and I'm not saying, obviously he's emotionally affected by his own son's death. I just thought there was something in that. Why would people report on him in the first place? Who is Charlie? Who is he? He's an oil tycoon. Oh, that's interesting. But he's not. No, he's not. He's not. According to his own words, he brokered some orders. So who is he? So why is this a newsworthy article? Well, because he sent it in himself for money.
Well, it must be. I mean, I can't put myself in his shoes to come forward about my father. I know he's doing the right thing, but that's a very difficult thing to do, full stop, to go against family like that, blood. But I know he's doing it for the right reasons.
I would not do it unless my father was hurting many people and taking money from a club from many people. If my father was anything like Charlie Ward, I would bury him. I would absolutely come clean. I would bury him. I would have no affiliation. I'd be disgusted he was my father. I have nothing but admiration for Glenn and what he's doing.
And I do hope one day that maybe they can sort things out in you know, at one point, you know, hopefully, but that's up to, you know, them.
Me too, but I hope that Charlie stops hurting people first, and then gets reconciliation from his family, and then enjoys the rest of his life with the money that he's acquired through his endeavors. Take that, stop lying to people, say, look, stop believing in shit I said. It was all a lie. I'm so sorry. Take any consequences, even if that's fines or whatever it can be, but probably nothing. And then take that money and enjoy it with his family, with everyone else being safe, knowing that it was all a con, and reconcile with his son and say, you know what, I have nothing against you for trying to help people, and I just want to be your dad again. And that would be the fairy tale story for me. And for Glenn to forgive him, and for them to then go on a massive holiday with all the money that he's earned, you know, whatever, doesn't matter, as long as the truths come out, as long as people are safe, and Charlie could have the money, just tell the truth.
Okay, so that's a wrap when it comes to the information that we need on Charlie Ward and Glenn Ward's response back to his father as well. Parts of the interview from the previous show and this part 2 will be included in the Captain Mark Richards docu-series, and I think we should also talk about why Simon Says is involved in the Captain Mark Richards docu-series. For legal purposes, my Simon is called Simon Says, and I want to read out an email exchange between me and Simon on July 4th this year. So, hi Simon, I'm about to release a video in a few days regarding an update on the Mark Richards docu-series and research I have on you. This docu-series is about to go back into production, and you are featured in that docu-series due to you releasing your video, Simon Says statement regarding Kerry Cassidy and Mark Richards in 2018. Before I start putting out any updates, I just wanted to reach out and give you the chance to come onto my show and have an interview with me to answer a number of questions that the docu-series will raise. This potential interview will be everything on the table. I will include your interview in the docu-series and the update video as your response. If you're honest and coming from the light, you have nothing to fear or hide from me. Look forward to hearing your response back. Best, Kevin Moore. Now, his response back was the following. Dear Mr. Moore, my barrister will be viewing your material and will advise me. My attorney-in-law in Florida State will also be advising me in regard to any USA actions. I will soon be living in both the UK and Florida as part of my duties. I am currently taking action in the High Court in the UK against 2 defendants who are charged with defamation and harassment, and I am unable to comment further until that case is resolved and the injunction is placed upon the defendants. Simon Says. I know exactly the court case in the UK that Simon's referring to in this email exchange. It'll be interesting to see how that court case progresses. I think I can never see myself suing anyone, but never say never. But if someone sued me for telling the truth or presenting statements from those telling the truth, I would definitely countersue back. 100% I would. And I think one of the important points of how Simon came into being part of the Mark Richards docu-series is anybody that was an enabler or a part enabler of the Mark Richards story automatically came onto the docu-series. And in 2018, Simon Says put a video out in regards to his take on the Mark Richards story and why he felt that part of the story was credible. I also think before we just get into that, I should just talk about the Mark Richards case itself. I just want to say as well a big thank you to the person who initially brought this story to me. His name is Jeff Reed. And like myself, he still has a vested interest in seeing this story told. We traveled around Marin County initially when I first did my first round of filming. And yeah, just thank you, Jeff, for everything that you did for bringing this story to me. Now, Jeff is going to be part of the docu-series because I've done an interview with him as part of my beginning journey into the story. And that will all become a bit clearer as the time into putting this docu-series goes forward. And there is a podcast that's going to be released on the docu-series, an ongoing podcast. Anybody that was involved in the Mark Richards story is invited to come onto that podcast. It's an open chat about whatever it is that we want to talk about, whatever happened during the process of making the docu-series, and their input into the docu-series as well. So I think whatever's going to be said now, whatever's about to be presented, it's done from no judgment. I've got no judgment against Simon Says because none of us are perfect. We've all got a past. When one finger is pointing at someone, three are pointing back. None of us have got a squeaky clean past. I think that we feel that those that put themselves up as public figures in this arena of the truth community, they should have they should be held accountable. But I think if we're going to, try to destroy them or, call them out as being whatever, then I think when we judge someone else, we should be judging ourselves as well. But that's just my take on it. So all this is about accountability, and I wouldn't be involved in this had it not been for the Mark Richards docuseries. And for me, it's all about putting my best effort into it to make the best product possible and knowing that this will help people as well. Of course, that's going to be there. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Mark Richards story. That's all going to be told in the docuseries. All I know is that I've interviewed over 26 people for this docuseries, and 19 of them were had a direct connection to Mark Richards. They could verify where he was in his early career, who he was, and anything where Mark states that he's a United States naval captain is absolutely false. Let's also just look at the record search that I've done. So here's Mark's record search with the National Personnel Record Center in America, and absolutely nothing came back. There's been a number of these done and submitted to the archives, and nothing comes back for the simple reason he never served in any branch. And for any people out there that say the opposite, that say his records have been expunged, absolute nonsense. And that is a reality that just doesn't exist. If you want to go down that disinformation route, that's your journey. Fine, say what you want to say, but it's just not true. Now, here's a records request that my former producer put in as a FOIA to the Department of the Navy Office of Naval Intelligence. And she also went into detail about requesting copies of a William Cooper and obviously Mark Richards DD-214 service records. There's a reason for William Cooper because Mark, in one of his interviews with Kerry Cassidy, talks about his involvement with William Cooper. And again, the records come back as there's absolutely nothing on file for the Naval College records, Naval War School records, or anything, because nothing exists because he never served. Now, Mark has gone on whilst in prison to do a radio interview to talk about his time in the services, but of course, it's not true. His wife, Joanne Richards, has presented the worst of the worst types of DD-214 certificates for Mark, and we're going to go into the certificate about why it's not true when the docuseries comes out as well. We may touch on it on the podcast as well. So, in 1982, on July 6, Richard Baldwin was murdered by Crossan Hoover. Crossan Hoover baseball batted him to death, then stabbed him with a knife and screwdriver multiple times. I've interviewed Crossan Hoover from his prison, and we spent 5 months on the phone together. He told me the complete story. He's one of the 19 direct witnesses in this case. Mark Richards denies me an interview. Of course he's going to do that because he's not telling the truth. Kerry Cassidy won't look at any of my research because it's telling the truth. My research is not just all the court testimony, but of course it's the 19 people. And Mark did not spend any time in the secret space program. Mark is not imprisoned for his time spent in the secret space program and being a political prisoner because of that. Mark was stood 7 foot away from Crossan Hoover as he gave the signal to have his good friend murdered for financial gain. Okay, there were 3 people altogether here. We've got Crossan Hoover, we've got Mark Richards, and we've got Andrew. Okay, so I'm going to put some slides on the screen throughout this talk at this point, and these are the 3 individuals mainly involved. So in a police interview that Mark did whilst he was free, basically not to do the interview, but he chose to. He admitted in that police interview after being busted that he helped dispose of the body of Mr. Baldwin into the bay along with Andrew and Crossan. He spent on Mr. Baldwin's credit card. He got credit in Mr. Baldwin's name. He sold Mr. Baldwin's guns. He brought the boat that the body was disposed on. He was there, and he blamed the boys that the boys did this, but Andrew stayed at Mr. Baldwin's house whilst Crossan Hoover and Mark took Mr. Baldwin down to his classic car restoration shop in San Rafael as a lie on behalf that Crossan Hoover wanted to look at Mr. Baldwin's classic cars. And Mark had decided to take Mr. Baldwin's life many, many days, I want to say weeks probably, before he asked Crossan to do it. Crossan was murder for hire, as he said in his original police interview, as Crossan said in his police interview. I've got the original tapes of Crossan Hoover's police interview, which are going to be released in the docu-series as well. So absolutely nothing's true about Mark being a political prisoner. Absolutely nothing's true on what his wife Joanne Richards has to say about Mark's time in the secret space program. And absolutely nothing's true about any supporters of Mark. Any one of them. They're all lost in misinformation and their own BS, or they're purposefully putting misinformation out. Now, when it comes to Simon Says, this is where it gets really interesting. With nothing being true that Mark was framed for the murder, and I'm one of a few people that know the full truth about Mark Richards, about this case. And, having him been with the police, or one of the police officers, well, sergeants at the time, and, and what he had to say about Mark, it's annoying that people doubt you, but I guess I haven't released the docu-series yet, so, a lot of the evidence is in there, but the evidence is in the court testimony, and if you're going to go against court testimony, there is no saving you. If you think the court testimony is staged for whatever reason, God bless you. You are lost, completely lost. So I want to first put out here the statement that Simon Says put out in 2018. Now, I'm not going to use any of Simon Says' original material because I don't want to get a copyright strike against me. So I've recreated his original 2018 statement.
Simon says, only do what Simon says. Simon says, only do what Simon says.
I wanted to do a statement or a quick update on the situation that is developing between Kerry Cassidy and Kevin Moore regarding Mark Richards. I see my name has been brought into it, so I'm just going to do this quick update regarding my position on Mark Richards, so people can hear where I'm coming from. I go back about 4 or 5 years. I've never met Mark Richards, but I met his wife. It was at a conference that she was speaking at, and I was a speaker as well. I heard Mark's wife talking about this guy, Mark Richards. So I'd certainly heard talk about the United States Navy and the off-planet entities that the United States Navy were working with, and that certainly struck a chord with me. I'd certainly heard that already. I do remember the audience were disappointed with her talk, simply because the evidence or the news she was giving was from the 1960s and 1970s. I think this was due to audiences prefer to get up-to-date stuff. But for me, I was very interested as that stuff from the 1960s and 1970s was matching what I'd heard. Sometime after that conference, I spoke to Winston Keach. Now, those of you who follow me know obviously who Winston Keach is. For those of you who don't, Winston Keach is a genius engineer. Anybody who said otherwise just does not know the man. Winston created the chip and pin reading device. So every time you put your debit card or your credit card into a reader in a shop, it encrypts that with a code, sends that to a central location, and that goes to the bank. It's then decoded, of course, and your funds are drawn out to pay for whatever you've purchased at the shop. So Winston created the codes on that. If anyone is in any doubt that Winston created it, then just search online, and there's a very young Win Keach being interviewed by BBC Television in England, and he demonstrates it being used. So there's absolute proof for anyone who thinks he didn't create it, as he did. So basically, I'd mentioned to Winston that I had been at this talk and I had heard the name Mark Richards. The reason I mentioned it to Winston was because when he created Chip and Pin, he was living in a town called Harrogate at the time, which is in North Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. Out of the blue, the National Security Agency just turned up on Winston's doorstep, unannounced, and introduced themselves and said that there was not a code on the planet they could not break. There was not any sort of communications that they could not hack into, but they could not break into Winston's code. As a result of that, they were going to fly him, as an all expenses paid, to Fort Meade, I think it's in the state of Maryland, to be taken to the NSA headquarters in America. And they will do a deal with Winston. If he gave them the codes, they would give him something else. Now, I did actually ask him, well, what did they give you? But Winston was pretty cagey on that, so I didn't push it. But he obviously got something out of it because he gave them the codes. Anyway, he was there for a few days. He was not just flown out there and back again. It was almost several days. The sort of man Winston was, he happens to have a meal with Condoleezza Rice. Now, for those of you who are too young to remember, I think Condoleezza Rice was the first National Security Minister, or Secretary, whatever, under the younger George Bush presidency. So Winston is sitting next to Condoleezza Rice at the dinner table, and that is the level that Winston was operating at. And I had mentioned about Mark Richards to Winston, and he said, oh yeah. He said, I've heard about Mark Richards, and I think that he is genuine. A couple of days later, Winston turns up on my doorstep and gave me a document, and he said, you cannot keep it, I want it back. You can keep it for 3 days. Now, the document seemed to be one intelligence agency doing a critique on another, and it was really looking at the United States Navy, and it certainly mentioned Mark Richards. So here again for me was confirmation that, at a high level, this man's name, Mark Richards, was coming up, okay? That is, as far as it went. I had not formed an opinion as to whether Mark was guilty of murder or not, and it really was not my interest. My interest was in the information I'd heard relating to the US Navy in the 1960s and 70s. It seemed to be very accurate to what I'd heard. So let's fast forward to the early part of this year, 2018. I'd been quite accepting of the fact that there were 20,000 sealed indictments sitting in the White House. Then earlier this year, it had been told, and others had been told, that there was probably upwards of 40,000, and I was very sceptical. You would need an army of people to put together 40,000 sealed indictments. It just seemed impossible. But I knew a man who would know. I had met him once before. I'm obviously not going to give any names, but I can say that he worked at the United States Embassy in London. So I went to visit him, and we met at Battersea Railway Station in London. We sat, had a coffee, and I had hot chocolate. Towards the end of our drink, he seemed convinced that there was 40,000 indictments, but he was not sure that the 40,000 indictments would be opened. His opinion was that the indictments were an insurance stake. In other words, if the satanic forces don't try and get rid of Trump, then I won't open the indictments. Toward the end of our drinks, this man then said to me, "You know Kerry Cassidy, don't you?" And I said, "Well, you know I do." And he said, "The name Mark Richards has come up." What he told me was that Trump had taken an advisor. You see, presidents and prime ministers have scores of advisors. But he said there was one advisor who was pushing to get Mark Richards released. I said, "Well, you know, what's that all about then?" He said, "Well, according to the information he'd heard, one of the indictments contained a name of somebody who had been involved in the case of Mark Richards, and that if this indictment was opened, then it would bring the other name out. And anything that this guy had been involved in would then be suspect, and that could lead to the president giving a pardon to Richards." So I said, "Well, what is the likelihood of that then?" "Well," he said, "if the advisor is still with Trump, in a year's time there is a 75% chance that Mark is going to be released. But if he is not with Trump, then that won't happen." So he said there were moves afoot either to pardon Richards through a presidential pardon, or to use the exact words I can't remember, but to use the mechanism within the prison service to get him a release. And this was slated for early 2019. So I heard this 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago. So he was saying that there would either be a presidential pardon if this advisor got his way with President Trump. Also, if he got his way with Trump, if they did not do that, they would go down this mechanism route, and I do not understand that. Basically, they would attempt to get Mark released from prison without a pardon, just some form of device they use in prison. And I do not know, but he said it was slated for early 2019. Then he said to me, he said, "The family won't like it." And I'm presuming this is the family of the murdered people, or the murdered man. And he said that the cops on the ground will not like it. Then he shrugged his shoulders and said, "But when has that ever bothered us before?" So what I clearly took from that was that at some high level, this name is being talked about. And if they did make a decision, they don't really give a damn what the effect is because they make a decision on high. So that's the information I had, and that's where I'm coming from. Now, whether if Mark is a murderer or not, I genuinely don't know. If he is a murderer, it doesn't mean the information he has is inaccurate. And the question Kevin is putting out there is whether Kerry has been taken in by Mark, who is just spinning stories. I would say the authorities must know that Kerry has visited Mark a number of times to interview him. So either they're deliberately allowing this information to come out via Richards to Kerry for whatever reason, or the authorities are totally unaware that Kerry's making visits to his prison and they're not even monitoring it. This is where I'm coming from. This is the information that I know, and I genuinely don't know any more than that. So thanks ever so much. Take care. Goodbye.
Simon says, only do what Simon says. Simon says, only do what Simon says.
Yeah, so the main reason why my Simon Says is involved in the investigative docuseries that I'm working on is because of the video that you just watched. I mean, when he says that a document that seemed to be one intelligence agency doing a critique on another one mentioning Mark Richards, well, I say that never happened. I say that's not true. It's fantasy. And like when he says that he met a man who worked at the United States Embassy for a hot chocolate, and this guy's got inside information, almost like a whistleblower, and then he's asking about, you know Kerry Cassidy, don't you? Yeah. And, you know the name Mark Richards, and it's all true, what Mark's saying, or parts of the story of what Mark's saying are true. It's just fantasy, it's just delusion, and it's just to, work himself into the idea that he's got all these connections when he hasn't. None of it can be true because the murder case, as it's portrayed in the court system, is the only truth to the case. There is no secret space program when it comes to Mark Richards, and anybody that says there's a possibility that could be, you need the same help as what Simon Says needs in regards to wanting to put that kind of notion forward, because it's just not true. But with no judgment. You're allowed your own journey, and the same with you, Simon Says. If you want to believe that that's your reality, no judgment, brother. You do what you've got to do. But I mean, I am going to hold you accountable to that, obviously, which is what I'm doing right now. So let's then move quickly to. Let's go to the birthday card, which I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to show you a birthday card that Simon Says is 100% him on the birthday card, and is part of the deep state. So first of all, I'm just going to state some fair use. That this video is one of Miles Johnson's old Basis Project videos. I emailed him just a few days ago. He agreed that I could use 4 minutes from this clip. So Simon Says does not own the rights to this video. It's Miles Johnson. So here's the email, and let's just read out the fair use. So this is a transformative work. We are educating the public and critiquing the video, audio, and information we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowed by law. Okay, so I'm going to play 4 minutes of this clip. No, actually, it may be a little bit less, but this is the birthday card. Then we've got another clip to play on the birthday card. This is interesting.
This January, went to our local card shop that had opened. It's called the Card Factory, and I went with my wife, and it's only been opened a little while, so everybody went down to buy.
So that's the card in question. He's saying
paper.
that picture is him
And
on that
literally
card.
standing in the middle of the shop because I don't like crowds, and I turn to my left and there's a carousel with some cards on it, and that card is slap bang in front of me. I snatch it off the carousel and I say to my wife, "What is my picture doing on a birthday card?" And she says, "What?" And I say, "What is my picture doing on an FUCKING birthday card?" And she looks and says, "I don't know." So I went across to the shop and I thought, God, supposing there's 100 of them, they're £1.39 each. Maybe they've got 1,000 of them. So I said to the young lady, "How many of these have you got?" So she said, "I'll go in the store and I'll have a look." So I went sort of waiting, sort of crossing my fingers, and she said, "I've got 7. And I thought, oh God, they've sold all the rest. They've only got 7 left. I said, "I'll buy them." And then I put the envelopes on the... She said, "Oh, don't you want your envelopes?" I said, "No, because I only want the cards, that's me." So she looked at the card and said, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, I'm not happy about it because I didn't give permission." So she's obviously, "Oh dear, all right then." So what I did was I phoned up the actual company that sold the cards, Card Factory, and a very helpful managing director spoke to him. He said, "Look, I'll just go away and check it." Came back and said, "I've gone through the paperwork and I'm pleased to tell you that we followed the code of conduct. We bought this picture from another company called Paper House." Here's the phone number for the managing director. So I phoned Paper House. Same thing, went and checked his records, came back. Yes, he said, "We bought this picture from a company called Photo Library." But he said, "You'll have a problem because they're in America." So, all right, okay. So got hold of Photo Library, very unhelpful. All right, we need to know who you say you are. So I said, okay, how do we do that? So he said to me, "Well, you tell me when that picture was taken." So I said, "Well, looking at the picture, I think it was taken in 1998. And he said, "Oh, good enough. It was taken in 1997. You are who you say you are. What we need now is some more proof." So I had some election.
It doesn't look
when I
anything
stood
like
for
him.
re-election around that time of me on posters and leaflets, and I emailed that to him. He said, "Oh, right, okay." He said, "Well, what I'll tell you is that the name of the person here is not your name." So I said, "Right, are you telling me that's not me?" And this was the killer. He said, "Oh, no, I'm not saying that's not you. Just the name I've got for that person is not you. Taken by somebody who lives in Texas photographer." So I said, "Right, okay. Where do we go from here?" And he said to me, "We don't go anywhere because English law doesn't touch us. We are not subject to your laws." I wanted the newspapers to phone up that company in America and say, "What's all this about?" And they did. They phoned them up. And I got the editor of the newspaper phoning me up, and he said, off the record, "When somebody says to us no comment, we wonder what you're hiding." He said, "You've come to us, Mr. Parks." He said, we've checked into your background. We know you're telling the truth." He said, "We've been on to them. All they'll give us is no comment." And he said, "Do you want me to take this nationally?" And I said, no, because
He
I
said
have
yes.
an inkling of what this
It was
is
a
about.
newspaper
And he
product,
said,
he turned him down.
he said, I understand what you're saying to me. He said, we do come across things like this sometimes. He said, you're probably being very wise. So in short, it doesn't say, it says Sir Geoffrey was about to discover that bears don't just shit in the woods. It's not saying to me, if you shit on us, we'll shit on you. It's not saying that. What it's saying is, we know what you're up to.
Yes.
But I don't know what I'm up to.
No, you don't.
That's been identified as a Phantom 4 Rolls Royce.
All right.
Okay.
So I traced the photo down in the end, okay, and that was with help as well to Getty Images. And on Getty Images, it shows the exact picture there. And on there, you can see that this picture is property of Stuart Cohan. So I actually did get to speak to Stuart Cohan over the phone myself. And what he said was actually the car that they were in on this photo shoot, this was in Fort Worth in Texas, and it either was a New York checker cab, one that you use for hiring for photo shoots, or it was an old London cab. This was, again, all hired out for the photo shoot. The photo shoot they were doing, this is one for a bank where it's, you know, like dad's on the way back home after being away for a long time. You know, that's what it was for. And 2 to 3 years after the rights expired for this photo that Stuart did for the bank, it then became public domain for him to put on websites like Getty Images, which is where you can now get it. So Stuart thinks this is a old New York checker cab. Now, this was around 97, 98 when this job took place for the bank, and that's definitely not Simon Says. And if we just zoom in to the model, you can see that when you put a light-by-light picture of Simon Says next to it, it's definitely not Simon Says. And it's all so weird why the cars turned up in the first place, 7 of them, that Simon Says, sticks to his guns that that's him on. He can't even tell his own self that that's not his own picture on these cards. And it's just like so strange. And they can't even keep the story right on the type of car that they thought that they were in. To me, having gone to the papers with this story, you know, to sell back to the papers that he had a political message in a card that for a picture that was took in Hackney in London in 1997, with a bear that was covering up someone that could have been famous sat next to me. And actually, no, the bear was part of the photo shoot in Fort Worth, Texas. Did he make the 7 cards up and get them sent? Did get someone else to send the 7 cards to the store? Did the store actually ever have the 7 cards? But who sent the 7 cards there, and what was Mr. Say's involvement in that as well? Because it's looking much more like now that he's part of this issue that he made public, that was a message to him about bears shitting in the woods. So it's another one that Simon's got to answer for, and it's not going to be an easy one to answer, that one. Now, just before I begin, I just want to say a big thank you to the Aletheia Project, because they've really helped myself just put some extra bits of evidence together that they had already been working on. And I hope I've done the same for them as well with bits that I've supplied them. But they are fantastic to work with. Please check out their social media sites. I'll leave all the links in the description below. Now, on their website, they talk about Simon's quotes and his references to RAF Flyingdales. Now, I've put the pink, well, sort of purple box on the right hand side. So I just want to read off what Simon says officially on his website. He says, Simon went public with his story back in 2010 and since then has toured the UK speaking at conferences, initially attacked by the establishment media in a concerted effort to discredit him. However, an event in 2013 was to be a game changer when Simon was invited by the British Ministry of Defence, the MOD, to join a small party being given a tour of a secret space radar base in the UK. This totally confounded the establishment media and has led them far more seriously to appraise Simon's story. Okay, so let's also just hear a little bit of audio with Simon at a 13 conference. This is a transformative work. We are educating the public and critiquing the video, audio, and information we are sharing. This is covered under fair use and allowed by law.
That's Fylingdales. That's the radar base station. I was invited around here by an ex-member of the security service. You don't just turn up and put your name on a list. You have to be invited. It goes down as RAF Fylingdales. It's actually run by the National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO. We report to the NSA, the National Security Agency of America. It's the
Okay, so someone in the intelligence services was helping him. Now let's go to the Aletheia Project website and let's just let's zoom in that front piece there. Okay, let's read this out. So I'm going to start halfway where it says, we've just made this full screen. I'm going to start reading from halfway down. So where it says, he did visit Fylingdales. So he's talking about Simon did visit Fylingdales. So he did visit Fylingdales as part of a civil council tour. Anyone can go on this tour of RAF Fylingdales. Just call them and they'll tell you when they have days you can visit. Through my father and because of what his role was, and the 2 regiments he served with, I was able to trace and speak to one of the RAF security police officers who was on the gate duty in 2012 when the visit took place, of Simon says. So I heard it from the horse's mouth. So he's saying that he had direct access and got a quote from the gate officer, police officer, who allowed access for Simon and his council members to come in and visit RAF Fylingdales. It was not through intelligent officers. And we're going to get this concreted up, these statements as well. So, interesting. In regards to Simon's statement on his website, one thing he mentions in a few different places is his mother, who in some of his website screenshots throughout the different years, they've got different statements on. So, for example, Simon's mother died in suspicious circumstances in 1979 when she was asked to be released from the work. Thereafter, Simon received $2,000, which was pushed through his door in an envelope with a note, "Don't look back, Dick Whittington." Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that. So his mum died of suspicious circumstances in 1979. Let's look at some other websites as well while we're at it, just to see if that's the same case with his mum. Now, Simon says he's got a bit of a big following in Germany, believe it or not. And I found some of the German websites that have interviewed him, and this is one of them. So let's just go to Simon's family. So on this German website of Simon's information, it says that Simon's mother, Jean, had become an alcoholic and resigned from her contractual partner MI5, but was murdered in 1979 because it was feared that she might reveal secrets. So we have no way of verifying completely whether these were the words that came out of Simon Says' mouth or not. So it's all alleged that this website is representing what, Simon thought at the time or thinks now, which I don't. That information is not on his current website, but I'm finding out that information on the website changes over the years. So let's just bring up Simon's mum's death certificate and let's just quickly zoom into that. And there you go. It shows natural causes that she died of. So I've redacted most of Simon Says' signature on his mum's death certificate there, but there he is signing the death certificate, agreeing with those causes of death, and it looks like they're all very normal things to die of. So murder, absolutely not. And talking about family, let's just look at Simon's grandfather as well and some of the inconsistencies there. So here's a picture of James Owen Marsland. Thank you for the person that gave us this picture. Highly appreciated. And yep, thank you for letting us use it. You don't see many pictures of him out there. So this is James in India working for the government as well. So on Simon Says' website, it states that James received an OBE and CBE. When looking through the London Gazette, which is the main newspaper which would publish honour awards for the Queen's honours list, as she hands them out per year, yes, when putting that name into the system, it shows a CBE and an OBE. Now, the issue that I have with James turning down the knighthood is it will not be published in the Gazette if he turned it down. So what we have to do is a Freedom of Information request, and that's easy to do, and I've put one to the Gazette, and I'm waiting to hear back as whether or not he did turn down the knighthood. The only problem we have is in 2013, when Simon Says attended a conference in Leeds, then he stated two things which were interesting. He stated that James Owen Marsland did actually receive an MBE, and here's the screen slides that he used in the presentation. Okay. He also stated in this 2013 conference that James, yes, he turned down the knighthood, but he became a companion when he accepted the CMG award, which is the Order of St. Michael. The problem with this is very few people ever received that award, and it would have been listed on the Gazette website when I typed his name in. Absolutely nothing came through. Again, this has been added to the Freedom of Information request to see if that information is true. I should mention that with James Marsland's diplomatic work with the UN, actually he was never a diplomat with the UN. If you look at his death certificate, it's got it down here where he was a United Nations representative. Okay, he was not a UN diplomat. If you go and look at the UN diplomatic past positions, he's not listed because he was never a diplomat. There's a big difference between a diplomat and a representative. And I believe it was the Aletheia Project that said to me, look, it's like we call our bin men nowadays in the UK engineers or technicians. It's the same thing, you know, a representative for the UN is a fancy, you know, cover up really for something a lot less, but that's still, you know, great that he did that position. It's just nothing compared to the power that a diplomatic position has. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Let's just wrap up here with my research with Simon Says. I think I should just mention that the Labour research is still ongoing, and I did find a government pamphlet with Simon's disqualification in there in the year 2000, where he'd been disqualified from the Labour Council for not turning up for meetings, and his position was filled pretty much straight away by new elections that took place soon after getting disqualified. Here's a newspaper article just showing his position being filled by one of his colleagues in the next elections that took place quicker than they would have done.
Care to revise your statement, sir?
What? Do you want to change your bullshit story, sir?
Now, just before we bring Em back onto the show, I just want to play this quick audio clip, which me and Em will get into as we, continue our conversation. But this audio clip is an experience of someone that went to the Awake and Aware community and was asking for help as she was suffering from all sorts of issues at the time. And this is her experience with one of the members of the Awake and Aware community. Okay. And I pretty much believe her. And I've had many people that have come to me with different stories as well and different experiences of their time within the Awake and Aware community and the issues that arose within them.
I have had people contact me about it, but I was pretty confident that they were victim gleaners. You know, that sort of thing. that they were just sort of making these documentaries sort of to, I don't know, defend. That's why I chose not to really do anything before. So I can understand why women didn't come forward because of the threat. You know, I was threatened. I was looking for help, and he got back to me straight away and saying I was part something else and part something else. He invited me over for a weekend over tea. We met, and it's been years, so everything now is like completely, I can't remember everything, if you know what I mean. So I went over, and I don't know, but he got his claws into me. It was almost like brainwash, if you know what I mean. I don't know, but everything inside me was saying, you know, don't go near him, don't go near him. And we went for dinner, and then he started asking me quite bizarre things. He told me that he had a sex altar in his house, and he wanted my menstrual blood on one of his ties. And he gave me a tie to do this, and he wanted it posted over, and that this would really sort of please him if I did this. And that was the sort of major thing that stuck out for me. And then after that weekend, I had sort of said, like, this isn't right. I know that was the one thing that sort of really stuck out for me. He kept telling me, oh, you're so special. You're this, you're that, you're you know, whatever. And, you know, he kept telling me, oh, you're so special to me. You're really special. He kept building me up. Oh, you're special. You're so special. You're psychic. You're this, you're that, you're the other. And he wanted to have sex with me without protection. And I don't know. So it's sort of patchy. The weekend after I met him, he said, oh, don't worry, I'll be watching you. And I was like, what the hell does he mean by that? At this stage, he hadn't got any of my menstrual blood. He had me brainwashed to the point that I was actually going to do it. And something inside me was just screaming, no. I hadn't done it. And I ended up throwing the tie in the fire and just saying, what am I doing? You know, it was like I was willing to do absolutely anything for that man. And that's completely out of character for me. I mean, I'm strong and independent. This is not the way that I act. He shouldn't have been treating women the way that he was. It was an absolute disgrace that he was able to do that, because it's about time now. I tried to get it all out, I don't know, and I was shut down. So I got shredded to pieces for saying anything. And I was just like, well, you know what? It's going to come out sooner or later.
So, Em, we've just heard that audio clip there. And before we sort of get into discussing that audio, let me just get your take as well on some of the research that you've done in regards to Simon Says, because obviously you've covered it from a bit of a different angle, maybe more of a current one as well.
Yeah, it is. He's got a very interesting story. Very interesting. And his story was very different 5 years ago compared to December, January time, where he really got very popular. I mean, 8.1 million views in one day. The first 2 weeks of January, 8.5 million views. This was separate from the 8.1, I think, over 2 weeks, just before the inauguration.
Yes. It was crazy. It was like all the other platforms were being, the QAnon platforms were being deplatformed at the time. And somehow, for some reason, that traffic came to him. And I remember speaking to my other friends saying, oh my God, have you seen this? His subscribers have gone up to like 300, 400, 500, then 600,000 in the matter of a few days.
It was crazy. And you know what it was? It was this massive stirring pot. You know, the Q drops had stopped in October, November time? Is that right? And there was a massive gap left in the market. And anyone that was speaking out about election fraud and all this since then had been immediately, their platforms have been removed. The two that you didn't have, I mean, Charlie Ward had just left YouTube on his own account. He says that he was kicked off. We literally recorded him. Well, we didn't record. We literally witnessed him removing all of his videos. Me and Justice, and so we had recorded the 2 months coming up to that for him saying we're going to be removed soon. We're starting our own channel. You can pay us for special information, on our own website. And then we watched him, or whoever's dealing with his account, removing all of his videos systematically. So we watched Charlie Ward delete his own YouTube channel and claim that he was censored, like everyone else who had been telling the truth, who was really kicked off. Simon Parkes, after that, had said he'd received a warning, which is probably true. And then he said he received an email, and he said that he'd received an email saying that they didn't appreciate his content and that they would soon be shutting him down. Anyone that's involved with YouTube, anyone that knows how it works, you do not get emails saying, we do not like what you're putting out and we're going to soon remove you. That does not happen. You get strikes. It's all systematic. And you get told, if you do it again, we'll remove you eventually. And he didn't get that. He got a community guidelines strike, which is different from a copyright or anything else strike. And then he said, you know what? And he put out on the 11th of January, put out a video saying, well, here's the 11th of January report, but we're not going to put it out on here. We're going to put it out on BitChute because we can't put it out on here because YouTube are going to soon remove me because they don't like my content. They told me so via email. It's just absolute nonsense. He was doing the same as Charlie Ward was doing. He was doing, he maybe did get a strike or whatnot, but he, again, all these people that are saying that Simon was shut down, he removed his own YouTube channel and said, go to BitChute. Now, BitChute is where, between the two of them, during the months of December and January, they were top trending on BitChute, and that's a big feat. I mean, it's a whole platform. With YouTube, even though they were killing it on YouTube, I mean, like I said, 8.1 million views in a day for Simon at the beginning of January on one day. They had moved over there and were just dominating BitChute, and that was when I did my video on Simon, where it was. It took a lot from High Impact Flix, who's another YouTuber. It took a bit from Mr. Bozohead, who's a YouTuber that's affiliated with me, who was had smaller numbers of subscribers, but I appreciated his content, his clips that he'd taken, and so I promoted that. So a lot of the video was of those. But the main thing for me was the guy High Impact Flix, who's quite a well-known YouTuber. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says or whatever, but I thought that his points on these two during this particular video, was spot on. So I used that content and thank them for it, regardless of whether I align with their whole thoughts processes on everything, to show especially his review of Simon's bio. Now, Simon's bio on his own website was extremely revealing, and the way that this High Impact Flix channel, which I'll put his link in my description of my video, he read out this bio. And once he'd done this video on this bio, because it was so ridiculous, it discredited Simon majorly. And I viewed that and I was like, what the hell? All of this stuff with watching Simon saying that his mother was a 9-foot green alien with 4 fingers. He saw his mother once or twice a month. He had children with cat-like aliens, feline aliens. And he had sex with these feline aliens about 4 times a year. I'd seen the videos he'd done with British mainstream news channels and had mainstream media. He'd given out this story, nothing about Q and all this stuff he'd later gone on about. It was all about the aliens, wasn't it? And I think it was about 2015, 14. You might be able to tell me different. He was the councillor for Whitby, He was a Labour councillor for a small town in England. Around, yeah, but it was a Labour councillor. I think it was around the year was what I was questioning. I think it was around 2015. Anyway, he at that time also, I mean, he was on the Good Morning show. For anyone in the UK would know that's a very prominent show. He also did this documentary of Channel 4, I think it was, and it was all about alien abductions and contact, yeah, things like that. And so I had that on the video as well, and showing, you know, his self-professed story about his alien mother, green alien, the mantis alien with 4 fingers, who was his mother that he'd first met when he was like 4-6 years old, and his first memory, which was when he had sex at 6 years old with a feline alien, right? And then he'd had a child with this alien called Zaka, right? I mean, it was quite out there. And I'm someone who gives time for people to have stories that are out there, but this was my introduction to Simon. And, you know, the cat alien thing, then I find out that he's had a very traumatic past. So he's calling this green alien mother, but, you know, his parents, so he never met his dad. Yeah, and he knew his mother for the first 18 years of his life before she died. She was a major alcoholic and didn't give him love and attention necessarily. So he had this traumatic upbringing, and I think they even said in the documentary, they were like, well, let's picture this situation. A guy with a troubled past, troubled upbringing, troubled childhood, creates a alternate reality.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you know, that's just your opinion about his childhood, and you know, who knows? Only Simon knows, right? So yeah, and I will say as well that I think his mannerism, the way that he comes across to a foreign audience, with obviously the English accent, is it's attractive, isn't it?
I think as both being British in origin, I think we underestimate the power of a British accent, especially a very eloquent speaker, a very, you know, I think there is a lot of trust. I think it's maybe, if you looked at all accents in the world, the most trusted, and maybe this comes from our subconscious, our history. The BBC, the reporting from the beginning of television, from the, you know, the Queen's English, from, you know, people tend to be more inclined to believe a very eloquent British speaking body of news. And I think that may be ingrained in us. And I think that you know, it might our accent might even do us some favors in the US between you and me, Kevin. But you know, I know I've got quite a big US following. I think it's actually overtaken my British following. But you know, with Simon, he's certainly more eloquent and intelligent, and maybe has a you know, more trustworthy persona than myself. Not only that, he's got this kind of now granddad-esque persona. You know, this older guy. Again, age comes into play with our subconscious. The older the person, you tend to think the wiser the person. He's extremely eloquent. You know, he's intelligent. You listen to him and you think that, you know, he must be telling the truth. If not, he's a very likable, believable guy. He again was a politician as well, and you know, I can see how people can easily believe him. I'm very quite critical. I think people from the UK have the advantage of going, you know what, he's just someone that could be down the street. So for us to criticise him may be subconsciously easier for people to go, look how well spoken he is. He probably is telling the truth. I don't know. There's many things that probably come into play with this, but
Yeah, and what I want to do here is I just want to show you a video that Simon Says was part of when it was his response back to the community in 2016. So I think it may answer some questions to the Jane Doe video that was put out at the beginning part as well. And I think you might find it interesting. So let's just play that video just now, and I'll just do a quick review of a few minutes of it.
Your reptilian Draco father, and the ramifications of what that has caused in some of the particularly female clients.
So I should just show the website here as well. This is a screenshot of the website around the same time where he's saying that Dad is out of his life forever. So this will make sense when he discusses what he's about to say.
I think everybody really wants to hear, were you not really aware of this? That he was working through you? Are you not aware that he was affecting women in that way sexually?
I had a good, asked my higher self, had a good scan and detected what I can best describe as an energy hook. That's the best way I can describe it. So what I did was remove it, which wasn't easy. It took time. It wasn't just, let's get rid of it. It was a hard job. I repudiated the creature that I called Dad, cut all connection.
So he'd been very happy to have this connection with this creature, you'd call it. I guess he called it there. And now all of a sudden, because of these issues that he's having from complaints, then this has got to go.
With him, removed his photograph from my website, wrote a statement kept on for a few hours explaining that.
We'll just put that statement on the screen.
Authorized Fran to place that on other websites because I'd been betrayed. This creature had never physically harmed me, never once. And I referred to it as Dad because when I was about 3 years old and it had presented itself, it said, "I'm your dad." Now, I knew it's not my biological father, but that's the name that I gave it because that's what it called. So to find that I'd been used like that is the greatest betrayal that you can have. But it was also the energy I needed to remove him from my life.
So he's saying about being used there, but that doesn't sound like he's taking any responsibility, does it? Personally.
I looked into myself, asked my higher self, and found that actually probably between the ages of 3 years old and 6 years old, this was done to me without my permission.
That's amazing.
And that's important because I didn't give permission. That's why it was okay to get rid of it, because it was easier to remove it without having, like you said earlier, all the red tape. I need people to know that that's not me. That's not with my agreement. That was not with my knowledge and my understanding. Yes. If I was working with him and I was doing it deliberately, then of course I would go into denial and hide.
So whatever he's talking about here, whatever allegations, I guess you can say, have been made against him, that he's taking zero responsibility here and blaming it on his E.T. daddy? Is that what we're saying here? I think it is.
I did. But the reason that I was honest and open is because I was horrified, absolutely horrified that everything I stand for, everything I believe in was being usurped or tricked or used for his own evil purposes. And I wasn't having it.
I think one of the questions people would have is, why wouldn't you have known this? If people were contacting you, for example, there were a couple of...
He did know this. I think he did. But that's my opinion. Only my opinion.
Indications that people had been so-called astrally raped on the inner plane after having a session with you, and then tried to communicate that to you. So can you address that?
I can't remember anyone communicating it as clearly as you just have. Okay. If someone had communicated it as clearly as that, then this process that's occurred recently would have happened a lot earlier. Okay. I have had people say that they got visited or they had astral this or astral that. But at that stage, excuse me, at that stage, what I believed it was someone mimicking me.
Well, let me get this right. So because they didn't say it as clearly as she just said it, and I just can't believe that for a minute that they didn't say how they felt as simply as she just said it. Do you know what I mean? So, okay, that's the reason why he never understood what they were saying. I don't get it. Do you?
And was somebody, I don't know, 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, projecting themselves, pretending to be me. So that was my mindset, and that's what I believe because of what my member of the family had told me. But if someone had put it in the stark terms that you just have, then the process to get rid of him would have started a lot earlier. But no one has actually laid it on the line like that. It's all been, well, this happened and that happened, and I might have been dreaming, or it was an energy attack, but I don't know where it was, and
So, you just heard that, and I've just, tried to put my 2 cents in there. What's your take on people that you've had communication with in the sense of alleged issues going on with inside Awake and Aware 2.0?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that. I've had some communication with a few people that were in the group and had left that. I heard the same about some cases of some concerns and some allegations over some sexual stuff. Now, this sexual stuff is not just ingrained in physical reality, let's say here. So as we know, he had a big network with group. He offered courses. Now these courses range from expelling demons to being able to stop mind control, to soul sort of soul searching, soul type stuff, right? Many people will say, it's all kind of demonic type activity that he has a large Christian following, and whether that should be a red flag to them for a start. And then these are the services that he offers for money, and a lot of these cases come from people that had put their trust in him through having these services and paying for these services and having this one-to-one time with Simon. The cases that I've heard about, and I've heard from a few members, and they've told me a bit about it. I was going to do a video around this, and I haven't got around to it. And I was thinking of doing one. It was kind of saved in the bank, but I'm talking about it now. And I received a full-on written statement about this. And since I received that, in fact, he came onto his website. I don't know if you've heard about this. To admit and apologize to any women that had experienced astral, this being not physical. Simon had appeared in their bedroom in the middle of the night and had sexual encounters with them, unwilling sexual encounters with them. In some of these cases, it was reported that Draco beings were actually present and seemed like they were directing the activity. This is all stuff that's kind of beyond my realm. Like, it's amazing and frightening, sinister. When I read this report, I have a report that was given to me, a written report. I don't know if you have the same report. I'll be happy to forward it to you for your investigations. This is from multiple members, ex-members of Connecting Consciousness. And that is what I saw, these detailed accounts of astral.
Well, I will say this, that anything to do with the astral stuff, it's all just alleged. I mean, I've got no problem telling people's stories or telling people's or showing people's statements, or having people tell their statements. But I have just to say that it is alleged. So let's just say that, and I think I've had enough. I think I'm done with this show right now. So I think you are as well. We've been here long enough, this 2-part show, and there's more we could have said, but I think we know why we came here. This is to introduce you to my audience. This is for me to show you some of my research on Simon Says, for you to have come onto the docu-series for the contribution to one of Simon Says' enablers, which is Charlie Ward, which is great. We've got that footage now. And, had Simon not have put fake information out on Mark Richards back in the day from his 2018 response, he would never have been part of this docuseries. But then again, I would never have looked into certain aspects as I have of Simon and discovered there's a lot of red flags, and it's for people to make their own mind up on how they feel about that. So I've enjoyed interviewing you on the first part, Em, and for having you here as a contribution to the second part. So just thank you very, very much, Em, for coming on.
Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a pleasure to have someone interview me in such a manner that I can, of course, tell my story from the start, and in all its glory, and talk about Charlie Ward, Simon, and what else came next. And you've been very accommodating to that. So thank you, Kevin, and it's been great to hook up with you.